I was looking through my oil collection when I realised that there are a few that I just left behind. And I can see why, because at the time I felt they just smelt very similar to other ones that I own. But last year my sense of smell wasn't really the best. So I feel it's best to revisit these, and I'm glad I did. These were the oils that I picked up last year, both of them from Aroma Energy. One of them is Spring Morning, and the other is Woodland Walk. Now, I probably should have read the description on Spring Morning because it does read that it's a famous blend of their most popular fragrance oils, so it's no doubt it smells so similar. What I like most about these oils is they feel like a subtle progression throughout the day. You start with the Spring Morning, being a bit like a window being left open on a sort of a sunny day, where you've got a scent of rose and cut grass in the background, but very similar to the cut grass that I reviewed in a previous video. It has almost got that scent of washing powder or something slightly artificial like talcum powder. I think the description doesn't sound very pleasant, but it's actually strangely comforting. It's quite a nice scent to start the day with. I was thinking of a more poetic way to describe Spring Morning, and I came up with the phrase that it's like a rosebud unfurling, waking out of its winter's slumber. But I think it's probably best to say that it is a rose-scented oil with cut grass in the background, and it's nice, but I'm very much on the wall about the artificial side. So I'm happy to move over to Woodland Walk because this is a lot more grounding, it's a lot more earthy and natural. I can imagine walking through a forest with all the various lichens and mosses all gathering on the rocks where there's this water cascading down, very much glistening with the dappled sun through the trees. It feels evocative and a lot more of what I would want in my diffuser. I think it's time to compare the scent in the bottle compared to the diffuser, starting with Spring Morning. This is the scent that I wasn't too sure about because out of the bottle it has some nice elements, the rose and the sort of cut grass, but yeah, just thinking about it, there's a slightly overwhelming scent of sort of washing powder or talcum powder, which isn't terrible necessarily, but I worry it's going to show through a little bit more when diffused. Let's try it out. So I put 4 drops into here. I tried to put 4 drops into here. Let's turn the light on. Okay, yeah, that's quite different. So the scent of rose has almost completely disappeared, and that scent of washing powder or talcum powder has completely taken over. It's not terrible by any means, but an artificial scent like this really isn't something that I like. It just reminds me too much of a room deodorizer and probably something you'd get in a public toilet. So I feel like I'm being really rude about this scent, but Aroma Energy make lots of really nice products, so I'm quite happy to move on to the next. Yeah, it's just not for me. So let's try out Woodland Walk, because from the bottle I can tell there's going to be a good chance I like this one. Woodland Walk is a lot more of a natural scent, I'd say. It's got aromas of moss and lichen and perhaps pine needles with, well, there's something else in the background, I'm not quite sure yet. So I'm really intrigued whether this will be revealed with the diffuser. It's definitely a lot nicer as a scent. It's like if you took the Spring Morning and you got rid of that artificial scent you'd be left with Woodland Walk. So let's try this out. Pop the light on. Just leave this for a few seconds to diffuse. Yeah, that's a lot more fresher as a scent now, and it's really opened things up a lot more. So I think that sort of missing scent that I was thinking of is probably juniper berries. And yeah, it's as if someone has quite literally walked through a forest and noted down all the things that could be around. So I think they've done a pretty good job at noting things like pine needles. Definitely that lichen and moss that I picked up on earlier, but interestingly though, they do have some sort of scent of rose, a bit like this spring morning, and I can't say I've ever been to a forest with roses. Be quite interesting though, I think. It's interesting because I was speaking to a friend about the difference between a rainforest and a forest we have in England, which is, well, rainy, but hasn't got that tropical climate. Turns out that you can actually have something called a temperate forest, which is similar in terms of rainfall. It just hasn't got the temperature. You do still get very humid forests in England, so this reminds me of a temperate rainforest. I think I'm going to leave this on this evening because it'd be quite nice to walk back into the room with that Woodland Walk scent in the background. I think it's time to move on with the rest of the video. Many scented oils come in packs that offer a sort of a palette of aromas, and I can understand why many people leave negative reviews on these products, because they do smell quite similar when compared to each other, especially if you're going quickly from one oil to another. But I feel it's a little bit like comparing something like fruit juices. Bear with me on this one, because think about if you're comparing multiple apple juices. They might look the same, might even smell the same, but it's only when you taste them that you realise they're really quite different. Not that I suggest drinking oils, please do not do that. The analogy is the same. It's only when you have them in their natural form, like diffusing them, that it really opens up the senses and allows you to reveal what they're really like. I feel like Spring Morning is a perfect example of the difference between a bottle and a diffused scent, because initially the bottle, I felt that it was actually quite alright, something I wouldn't have minded. However, the moment it was diffused, I realised that it was a very artificial scent, and it's not what I would say was bad, but I couldn't go more than a couple of minutes without feeling like it smelled like a room spray. But I was very happy to move on to the Woodland Walk, because that one to me is a lot more natural, it's a lot more earthy, and reminds me of things like pine needles and juniper berries. In fact, I could think about the lichen-covered woods and that sort of mossy note in the background. It felt like a very complex and quite interesting palette, I would say, of scents, and one I'm quite happy to use in the future. Looking at my collection of oils, I believe I've got enough for the next 5 or so scent Saturdays. At very least I've got enough till the end of the year. After that, I believe I'm going to move on to more natural oils, things like lavender and clove, because I've owned many of these in the past and I feel they've got a lot more depth to the scent, and I often find it more relaxing as well, as if the natural oils are actually having a real effect on my mood. So this is something that I would like to explore, is that difference between the natural and the artificial. But that's not to completely put down artificial oils, because they're excellent at bringing back a memory or evoking a certain feeling that you just can't get with a natural oil. And I think I'm probably going to still mix and match these in the future. But either way, I know what's on my Christmas list for this year. Thank you again for watching this Scent Saturday. I hope you enjoyed it, and be sure to subscribe to see more content in the future. But for now, goodbye.